cell body. Here's a nerve cell body. It has an axon that comes all the way out.
Right.
It has a terminal out here. And then off of this is the dendrites. Well, the soma, the cell body, would be up here.
Oh, okay.
And this is the motor cortex. And this is the motor cortex. It's a two neuronal pathway. So if I want to do this, it's initiated up here where my finger is. And then there's a two neuronal pathway. It comes down to little order motor neurons of the spinal cord, and then it goes out to the muscles to make the muscles contract. But there has to be a lot of integration to do this, a lot of integration. Because you have to contract these muscles, you have to relax these muscles, and you have to know which finger you want to move. All that kind of stuff goes on there. And we don't have to think about it. It's really a wondrous thing. It really is. But my point is this is the part that sets us apart from all the other animals on the planet. We are light years ahead of everybody. They give you these things, oh, this monkey can say water bird, can sing the water bird. Well, a 2-year-old can say water bird. You have to, they just listen to you, they look at you, you have a 2-year-old, right? And they mock everything you do. So if you don't want them to smoke, don't smoke. Okay? So anyway, the cortex of a newborn, and what I'm explaining to you right now is this idea that people are born to be this and born to that. That's bullshit. We learn everything, and that's what I'm trying to explain to you. So this is work by a Spanish neurobiologist called Ramon E. Cajal. And at the turn of the 1900s, this Spanish scientist, he went in and he developed a stain that he could stain the nerve cell bodies in the cortex. And we could see the development. And so the scientists use this to show the development of the cortex. Now, you're born with every nerve cell body in the brain you're going to have. Okay? So we know that those nerve cell bodies are connected to the muscle because the baby kicked in the womb, right? You know that too. All the women here know that, right? And the baby is strong because the baby can kick really hard in the stomach. Anybody experience that? Okay, so I'm not just making that up, right? Because I know, because my wife, I can feel the foot. I can say, whoa, what's he doing in there, So we know that the nerves of the brain are connected to the muscles and that they're strong. The babies are strong. But when the baby comes out of the birth canal, can it walk?
Or like a calf that can do that.
Okay, yeah, but I'm talking about human condition. Okay? It can't walk. It can't do anything. Some babies have to learn how to suckle at the breast. Yes. So if it was genetically programmed, then the genes would just say, at this point you do this, this point you do this, this point you do this, and that would happen. And the example I give, if the gazelle on the Serengeti plain, they come out and within an hour they have to be running with the herd. Because the hyenas will smell the afterbirth and they would come and eat it. And not only that, when the gazelle comes out, he knows that if he sees the hyena over here, he gets on this side of the mama. He doesn't get on that side, he'll get eaten, right? So it didn't have time to develop that, it wasn't trained. That's all genetically programmed.
Instinct, they call it.
It's genetically programmed. It's more than instinct. We have instinct, what we call intuition. Like in Chicago, don't go down on 79th Street.
Same thing here.
Who's in Boston? Don't go to South Boston by yourself. But seriously, these are adult behaviors in a newborn. Yeah. Human babies are not like that. They come out their floppies. They don't have to do anything. They can't even see. They can't focus their eyes. Now, the work I'm going to talk about, and you could go look it up on the internet, is by David Hubel and Thorsten Wiesel. They got the Nobel Prize in 1983 for showing that the connections in the neocortex are not genetic. It's not genetic, because what they would do is blind the cats at certain stages of their development, and those cats would be functionally blind for the rest of their life. At critical points, they need to have the experience in order to make the connections. Did you have a question, Julie?
No.
I'm just trying to make the connection.
Because if it was genetic, you could cover their eyes for the whole development, and the genes would already tell them where to go, and then bam, they'd be able to see. So they got the Nobel Prize for this work. Now, what this means is everything that human beings learn or know, all the behaviors, is learning. Anybody want to comment on that? Or?
Yeah, I do.
Julia.
So I was reading this book on linguistics. It wasn't like a tough study or anything, but they kind of said that if you had two kids that grew up to adulthood, they would learn how to communicate. Even if nobody taught them how to speak, they would develop their own language. And in that sense, I'm like, okay, a baby would not be able to do that, but they're saying it that we are trained to, or we are...
Have the capability.
Yeah, that if you put two humans together when they're very young, they're going to be able to communicate, like develop a language. So that is kind of, I feel like it's contradicting the example that you're giving.
No, because see, in all of mammals, there are certain things that all mammals have to do. Mammals like to touch. So when we meet someone, what do? Don't worry, I'm not going to break your hand. Why do we like to do this? Why do we like to do this? Why do you like to touch somebody else?
Connection?
It feels good. Does it feel good? When you touch somebody else's skin.
I not really, because I'm not like that.
Well, okay, you are.
No, really. I'm just saying I'm not. I do it because I was taught to do it, but I'm not really a person who likes to get that close to people.
Okay, well, so there's individual variations, but in the world, and I've been all over the world, and in the world, people will come up to you and do this.
Yes.
And when you know why you do this? Because you're releasing endorphins when you touch. So when the little baby falls on the ground, what do? You kiss his knee? Well, there's no physiological thing. Kissing the knee makes it feel good, but that touch releases endorphins, and you feel good. And so we touch. All mammals do that. All mammals do that. And I don't know what happened in your ontology, but in mine, it feels good. I don't know her, but this feels good. This feel good to you too?
Yeah.
Was it good for you too? So there are behaviors that are subcortical behaviors. There are behaviors that are subcortical behaviors, but the neocortex controls everything that we do. Now, this is an example I give in my classes. You have this experience. You come home. When I was a kid, I'd come home, and you had responsibilities. But if you saw your mama's fine china on the stove, you say, "Oh Lord, if that gets broken, everybody in the house will have a headache, right?" So you go to get that fine china and pick it up and put it under the cover. But the stove was hot, and you pick it up, and it's hot. The reflex is to do what?
Drop it.
Do you do that?
No.
Oh, that's your mom's fine china. So even though it's burning you, you put it down. Why? Because the neocortex overrides all subcortical behaviors. All subcortical behaviors are overridden. In Vietnam, they had these things called punching sticks. And the American soldiers would come, step in there, and it goes right through their foot. Bamboo. It's bamboo. And so they trained the soldiers that if you step down in there, jerk your foot out right away so it won't go all the way through. Then the Vietnamese said, okay, you guys know how to do that now. They dug it a little bit deeper and they put punching sticks going down like that. So when you stuck your foot in there and you yanked it back up, it got you from the top. So you had to override all those things. When you stepped into a punching stick, you froze and let your comrades come over. You know what I'm saying? All of these reflexive behaviors that are subcortical can be overridden by the cortex. You always hear these stories about the little baby runs in front of a speeding car and the mother goes, sacrifices herself for the baby. That's overriding all of your reflexes. Self-survival. You override it because you need to do that. The cortex. You understand? So the cortex of a newborn has all the neural elements, the connections between the brain and the muscles established. The baby can kick, but it can't walk. Why? The reasons why, all those nerve cell bodies, they're not connected to bring about a behavior. That's why. The cortex of a 1-month-old, Julia, help me out here because you were there. More recently than me, at 1 month, the child can follow with his eyes, it can grasp objects, infant can form sounds, babble, cannot lift his head, walk or crawl because the neural connections necessary have not been made. But you see, we're starting to have more and more connections between those nerve cells. And the more the baby is engaged, the faster those connections are made. That's what they talk about being in an enriched environment. You put a baby in an enriched environment, they learn faster. We all know that, right? Neocortex at 6 months, the child is able to crawl, hold his bottle, make noises, express his desires, and the child cannot walk at 6 months or play the piano because the sufficient connections have not been made. But look, a lot more connections, right? Those connections correlate to the behaviors. And the baby is learning stuff, it's learning to grab stuff. The first time, some babies come out, there's been stories, and true stories, that people have used the uterine device, the IUD, and it failed, and the baby comes out holding it.
No. I got a question.
Yeah.
No. What you're describing is, like you said, the integration of the muscles and
Of the nerves cells of the cerebral cortex.
Right, but they direct the muscles.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's confusing to me is that does that same process then go on in terms of human interaction or learning?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, is it all these electrical connections that are going on, or is it
remodeling the cortex? It's remodeling the cortex because here's the deal. It's a good thing for us. Like physical therapy has shown us that humans can build muscle at any stage of their body. As long as they're alive, they can build more muscle. And as long as they're alive, they can learn new things. They can learn new things. I started taking Chinese when I was like 56. And now when I go to China, I'm able to converse with people in Chinese. And people say, ooh, that's a hard language. No, it's not. It's not. If it was so hard, how come this little baby speak it? So we can rearrange our cortex. We can learn all the time. And we learn things on a daily basis. Everybody learns something on a daily basis. You know what I mean? So, any discussion about this? I'm saying that everything we do, we learn. Even this, we learn to do this. Nothing is genetically programmed. Yes?
I have this healthy discussion or argument with friends as far as genetics is concerned. Because I also believe that people's bullshit. But I have a friend who has a drinking problem, and the whole idea of right, you probably know where I'm going with this. So
yeah, the Indians have low alcohol dehydrogenase, so therefore they can't break down the alcohol, and that's why they become alcoholics.
Or the argument that it's genetically given through generations. And my argument is like, okay, then there's no reason in hell that I would not be a raging alcoholic. Because just of the fact of the family, my family history. But where I'm from, you have a bar in every corner and a church across the street. So you're going to, it's everywhere because it's so poor and that's very cheap to get and people do it. So again, in my family, there's like 10 total kids, my aunts and uncles, whatever, and we have one person who's, he touches a drink and he's pretty much wild, and nobody else does that. So
if I had a chalkboard, I would draw. All of human physiology has what we call a Gaussian distribution. The bell curve. And in the median, the average X bar, everybody, 68% of the population is one standard deviation of that curve. But then you have all these outliers. I don't care what it's about. It's about height, or natural weight, or whatever, or enzymatic processes. Most people fit within one standard deviation of the mean. So the thing is, the point I want to make about this is that there's two types of inheritance. There's biological inheritance and there's social inheritance. Most of the stuff that they talk about being inherited is sociological inheritance. You go to the doctor, they ask you, how many people in your house is diabetic? And you get the idea, it's in the genes. And like one day my wife was eating cholesterol, very high cholesterol. I said, that's kind of high in cholesterol. She said, it doesn't matter. It's all, it's all genetic. Because Marcia said, I said, no, her family has familial hypercholesterolemia. Your family doesn't. The more cholesterol you eat, the more cholesterol you're going to have, and that's going to cause atherosclerosis. Because Marcia was telling her it didn't matter how much cholesterol she was going to eat, she was always going to have high cholesterol. But that's because she had a genetic defect that allowed for that. But most of the things, I'm going to tell you right now, most diabetes is type 2. 90% of all diabetes is type 2 diabetes, and that's from eating sugar. Sugar is veneno. Veneno. Veneno, however. But don't eat sugar. Yeah.
Not just sugar, though, I have to say.
Sugar, breads, all that stuff.
Carbohydrates. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's a myth that it's just sugar, that some of people who are diagnosed go off sugar and it doesn't help. But
Yeah, you're right. But the fact of the matter is, and I was talking to somebody about this before today, is that they've addicted everybody in the U.S. to sugar by putting high fructose corn syrup in Enfamil, Similac, and all that stuff. So they don't have a chance. But the good thing is, any addiction can be overcome physiologically in 1 week if you just totally abstain from that. Whatever it is, I don't care what it is. And if you want later, I'll explain how that works. But any addiction, you stop it. But then you have the social addiction and the psychological addiction. That's something else you have to deal with. But,
those that you're naming are probably the ones that are built with the learned experience. So it does change your brain in the sense that it makes all these connections that you're describing. The sociological,
The addictions you
the
said?
addictions that are probably tied up to these connections that your brain has developed by doing it.
okay, I'm not quite sure what you're saying. But let me just say this about addiction. Let me give an example of addiction and how it works. Okay?
She's saying when you have an addiction, you're forming some of these pathways in your brain. So even if you quit that drug, the pathways wouldn't
Let me
just be
explain
eliminated.
this. Let me explain this and see if it answers it for you. Okay? Because you don't want to go. I mean, you can go too far off in that area. Okay, let's talk about heroin. Everybody know what heroin is, right? And heroin, you know, they called it heroin because it was to cure people from opium addiction, right? No, that's, go look it up. That's why they had it. Then they came up with this other stuff called methadone, which is to cure you from heroin. It's all the same shit. You know what I mean? It's just different control. Okay, so here's how heroin works. Heroin binds to natural opiate receptors in the brain and the spinal cord. And we have some natural opiates called endorphins and enkephalins. Endorphins and enkephalins. Because we have what's called analgesic pain pathways and analgesic block pain pathways that are in our body. Pain is a good thing. It lets you know that there's tissue damage. So in your body, you have this balance between pain and block pain. So in the pain blocking pathway, we have these endorphins and enkephalins, and they make you feel good. So when we touched hands, we got the release of endorphins, and it makes us feel good. Okay? So when you take, and all neural transmitters and endocrine secretions and hormones are at a range of 10 to the minus 7 to 10 to the minus 9th. In other words, it's very, very, very low concentrations in our plasma. Very low concentrations. Okay? But when you take exogenous opiates, like heroin, what it does, it actually... See, so if you only have 10 to the minus 7, 10 to the minus 9, not all the receptors get occupied. Because in each cell there's 10,000 receptors. Not all the receptors are occupied. But when you flood it, and you can take up the serum level to 10 to the minus 3, 1,000,000 times more than it should be, you block all of the receptors. And when you block all the receptors, you combine with all the receptors, your body stops making that substance because we got too much of it. Everything's on a negative feedback, so you stop making that. And so then you have to use the exogenous to kill the pain, because when you take away the exogenous opiate, there's nothing to counteract the analgesic system, and so you feel pain. That's when you're addicted. You're addicted because you have flooded the system with this exogenous substance, and now you've thrown the whole system out of kilter. So you stay off the heroin for a week, and the body is a miraculous survival entity. We do all kind of crazy things to our bodies, and we still are alive. It's amazing, because it's a survival entity. We evolved to survive. So after a week, everything is reset, and you're good to go. You physiologically, you're no longer addicted. But the reason most people are addicted is because they want to be addicted because they want to escape their objective reality. But that's a different thing. That's not, it's drugs. There's another talk on here, and I think Ellen will give everybody a copy of all these things that I gave about the war on drugs is equal to war on the working class, which dispels this idea that drugs cause addiction. Drugs don't cause addiction. People want to be addicted, but most people don't want to be addicted. Most people do not want to be addicted. Okay, so does that answer your question, Julie?
I was still thinking that it was I was trying to make the connection to your presentation, but I also understand how a lot of times making that connection is just too broad and you're ignoring too many things. So I understood.
Tell me again. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, when you make these, every time you have more
as you learn
connectors.
things, you're making more connections.
So I'm just saying, when you're starting to consume drugs and you associate it to some social behavior and how you respond to stuff, you also make some connections. So those don't go away in a week. Those stay there. So you always fall back. So I'm just saying.
I don't know if you can say that, Julia, because the brain is infinitely plastic.
That's right.
It's infinitely plastic. The U.S. is about to collapse. This economy is about to collapse. And the reason it's about to collapse is because the petrodollar was boosted by Nixon made a deal with the King Saud of Saudi Arabia that all oil would be sold using U.S. dollars. And the reason they had to do that because the Vietnam bankrupted our society. It bankrupted. 10 years of nothing, it bankrupted. The gold used to be tied to the U.S. dollar. John can talk about that. And then everybody said, hell no, you printing up extra money. And then the dollar, the price of gold went up to 500 and all kind of crazy stuff, right? If they sell the oil, which doesn't come here anyway, in euros, and that's why we invaded Iraq, because there was deals by every European power to buy oils using euro. And they concocted this stuff of mass destruction because they needed to go and control that oil. There ain't no nuclear bomb in Iran. We got 38 bases around Iran right now, and we're telling Iran, you sell that, and because the Chinese are trying to buy it in yuan. If that happens, the U.S. dollar collapses, and that's why. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's a lot of discussion about a lot of things that are really crucial, and I want to know, in the event we don't get through the PowerPoint, can I get a copy of it?
Oh, yeah, get a copy of everything.
The rest of that as well.
You got a zip?
That I can
She would email it to you.
Yes.
She has everything.
No.
There's another PowerPoint about the evolution of the brain.
Yeah. Oh, it's on this one. Is it on this one?
No, it's on a separate one. But anyway.
Okay. Yes, sir.
In fact, you're saying, would you get back on the subject?
That's just me.
I'm sorry. I said because all this stuff is interrelated. If you can control the mind, the rest of the body follows. And that's the bosses do a wonderful job of look over here, or they stab you in the back. And there's a lot of people that get involved in this because, listen, a lot of college professors will go along with this because they're making a good life. I've had an excellent life. Seriously, I've lived a wonderful life. I mean, it's not that I wasn't fighting back against racism. I've been arrested for attempted murder, doing party work. I've been attacked from the coast to coast. I had to fight Nazis, the West Coast, East Coast, and the central part of the country. I haven't not been, active politically. Raul was in fights with me. But I've had a wonderful life. I got to, get a PhD from UCLA, do postdocs. I've traveled around the world. Right now, like I said, I'm going to China to teach over there in November. What's wrong with that? So people like me, they don't want to see no change. They don't want change. It's all good for them. It's all good for you. You know what I mean? But then we realize that, we're all humans, right? And when you see this, I was driving with my daughter, and I saw these guys carrying this cart with this mattress on it. What the fuck is wrong with this society that you have people living in the streets like that? The most opulent society in the world. And you got people, and in Chicago where it gets down to -80 wind chill, people are sleeping on crates over
The heater, the subway.
the ventilation drugs. What's wrong with our society? Have we lost our humanity? No, we haven't. The leadership has lost it.
Was there a particular aspect that you wanted him to focus on?
No, I guess I would. I'm kind of going through the same thing in our school. We're doing something around diversity, but not politically correct diversity. How to institutionalize racism inside the schools, and how that's being effectively perpetuated, and how we must be on the same page and just deal with open race. And I was just kind of looking at that.
And Ellen will give you my email and my telephone number. You can call me. You can talk about this. I'm not putting myself as an expert because I'm telling you, all the stuff I told you, you can get it on the internet. All of it. But when I wrote that paper, The War on Drugs, I didn't even go to the library. I was so surprised that I can get all these resources right off the internet.
The thing since you and I have talked a lot, that I think is there's this, you've presented a kind of biological explanation of the brain and these connections and all that, and yet we're flooded with all these kind of presentations that some of this stuff is preset or whatever. And well, yeah, the genes preset learning.
Okay.
You're a teacher. We got a lot of teachers in this room.
Right.
And if you enter teaching with the concept that certain kids have it and other kids don't, it's very difficult to reach out to all of them.
Absolutely.
But my point is that understanding better the physiology and all this doesn't necessarily maybe translate in, or isn't always the best argument for undoing people's preconceptions about.
I think it's the basis.
It's helpful.
I think it's the basis.
I don't know. Is that
because they shower us with all kind of stuff. But if you understand the development of the brain, then that's an argument that they can't refute. This is an argument they can't refute. And from our own behaviors, Julia is an expert on what babies do and at what time they do it. Why? Because she had 3? 2? She had 2. She saw what they did. You know what I mean? She has to be reminded of that because she wasn't thinking about that until we had this, right? So when you start talking about intelligence and you think about this, you say, no, that's not true. Then if we believe what the society purports, all blacks are stupid and all whites are smart. Then I ask, well, if all whites are smart, how come some of them are working at Kmart? If they're all smart, why are they working at Kmart? Or Walmart? You know what I mean? There's so many contradictions in our society, and they use these contradictions to keep us entrapped. If they can control our minds, so we have to fight back against this. Listen, I'm a communist. The reason I'm a communist is I understand that we have to have a world where everybody's needs are taken care of, and it's possible now. But maybe 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, it wasn't possible. Now it's possible. We throw away a quarter of all the grain that we grow is eaten by rats. We need to have better means of distribution so it doesn't happen. Everybody can eat. I'm not in favor of growing corn. Archie Midland Daniels is the devil. But we can grow enough food for everybody in the planet to eat. We can have enough for everybody. In China, you have 1.4 billion people. 850 million are in abject poverty. But if you go to Shanghai, which is the most modern city on the planet, those people are living really good. It's very pleasant to be there. They say, don't worry, it's all safe. Nobody's going to attack you. I'm walking around because they got all these expatriate nightclubs. I've been to almost all of them. You can walk around 3 o'clock in the morning and nobody can do nothing to you. Not like in this country. If I was walking around 3 o'clock in the morning, the cops would stop me. Over there, nobody says nothing. But my point is, there's enough of everything to everybody can have something. But these capitalists want inequality. They talk about how the U.S. Doesn't have money. Yeah, we have money. The rich people have it. The rich people have all the money now. We got to get that back from them. Or get rid of them altogether. Money too. And money too. Have a society where we all get what we need. Because there's enough for all of us. Why do we have a society where we have homeless and we have abandoned houses?
That's the best. You have to get rid of them.
You know? It's all political. Yeah, sorry.
I saw something that really disturbed me a couple of weeks ago on Nova, which I don't watch all the time, but this is PBS. And the whole report was on the genetics of violence and the warrior gene and how they were very careful about it. They didn't come out and have a racial component. They said across all ethnic groups that everybody carries this gene, but only certain people are, you mentioned that it's a inert process, but that it gets activated by environment. So now they're turning around and trying to say that certain people's environments contribute to opening up this warrior gene. But I mean, to me, it's stuff that I would expect to see on Fox or CNN, not on PBS.
Yeah, but PBS is funded by the government.
Well, and the Sloans and the wealthy.
So that gene doesn't, the warrior gene does not.
Just show me. Just show me.
No, but that's the thing. You did show that there was genes.
The genes.
You did say that. Okay, there's these people, and there's like a maximum and minimum that they could grow to, and there's like a Gaussian distribution. So but they have maximums and limits and probability. But what he's saying is that they're specifically saying there's this gene, and you can still have a Gaussian distribution for that gene, but that doesn't mean that gene does not exist. And you're saying that gene does not exist.
Exactly.
Okay.
But they could not exist.
They could not, because all behavior is controlled by the neocortex. Ask any neurobiologist on the planet. On the planet, they'll tell you all behavior is controlled by the neocortex. Remember I was talking about picking up the hot glass? Well, the genetic response, the reflexive response is to let go of it. The cortex overrides that. Her first opinion.
So my question was, okay, what about this whole idea of the chemical imbalance? So like they say, like, okay, obviously I have nephews and they're black boys, so they're like, oh, well, his behavior is because, this and he's...
The teacher? How much neurology has she had?
We're having a problem with the school, but I mean, there's these kids are so active and he's, very much active, and maybe there's something, did he get tested, or is he has a chemical imbalance?
ADHD.
Yeah, ADHD. So, I mean, my thing is like...
Listen, kids are supposed to run around.
That's it.
You superimpose a structure where they had. When I was a kid, we had a morning recess, then we had lunch, and then we had an afternoon recess. I was explaining to Julia that when I was growing up, that's where the layered look developed, because we would be foggy in the morning. We have a t-shirt, a shirt, a sweater, and a jacket when we went to school. Morning research, we took off the jacket, we went out with just our sweaters on. Lunchtime, we took off the sweater and just had on the t-shirt. But afternoon recess, we had to put the sweater back on. But they had the recesses so we could run around. And there was no rules against running. We ran all over the place. We ran around. Got rid of that energy. Kids are supposed to do that. That's why we have so much obesity now. Don't run, you might fall. Yeah, you might not fall too. I was sitting next to this teacher, and she said how bad her kids were, and they didn't listen, and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, how many kids in the class? She said, 35. Yeah. Really? I said, well, what grade is it? She says, kindergarten.
Oh, my God.
You couldn't figure this one out? I got 3 kids at home, and it's hard for me to tell them what to do. Actually, about what I was only now.
Yeah, that's a piece of it, and also so much pressure for the tests, and so kids are being prepared. A lot of the preschool movement, which is supposed to equalize their academic preparation, is also socializing them to be able to come into kindergarten and sit still, so they can be taught their letters and their sounds and the elementary math, so that by the time they go through, so they can pass their assessments to be able to be promoted to first grade. So the pressure is coming down so much that's taking away this opportunity to play for these kids.
But it also takes away the opportunity to explore and to see the things, because what you do is they select those kids that can sit there. In China, when you go to grammar school, you have to sit like this. You sit like this all day long and listen to the teacher. And so I was giving this lecture on the neurobiology of the nervous system, and I was talking about the cell. Remember the teacher I was talking about this, John. They couldn't adapt to the idea that the membrane potential was just across the membrane and not across the whole cell, because what they do is they memorize everything. They memorize everything, and the ones who memorize everything are the ones who get into medical school. Medical school is free over there, as a matter of fact. But so when I came out with a concept that required more imagination, This guy says, how could that be? How could you not see how that could be? I'm such a great lecturer and I spelled it out so good. But no, because they just, and I had two students come up to me after I give a lecture and they says, don't tell us the stories, just give us the facts. I said, no, I got to tell you the story. That's who I am. But they asked me to come back, so they must like what I do. You know what I mean? But when you have that kind of environment, all those kids that are, every kid has genius. You're stifling some of those who are always thinking about something else. They don't want to do this today. They want to do that. That's why the Montessori school is so great. Because, I don't feel like doing this today. And we all don't feel like doing stuff. The ones of us who are successful, we didn't feel like doing it, but we did it anyway. Because who wants to study differential equations? How many? Raise your hands. Okay, 2 out of all of us. I'm not even raising my hand because I hated it.
I don't need to do it.
So, but you did it because you wanted to be successful. You know what I mean? So, there's a huge variation in it. We should let all these geniuses happen.
Well, I have another question. So what about sugar? Like obviously, I know sugar is really bad and it's a chemical. So doesn't that affect the brain somehow? And then
Can I just say something about sugar as a teacher? It doesn't really matter whether they have sugar or not.
I'm just saying, if kids are not adults,
they're active,
anyway.
they're active. At least in my experience, we have 3 recesses. My classes really, they move a lot. They're supposed to.
Correct.
But whether they have candy or not, it really doesn't. I don't see a difference at all.
Anybody else have it? Because I see a big difference because I taught at the college level. And when I had a class at 10 o'clock in the morning, everybody's alert. Then when I have a 2 o'clock class, they would come in and they weren't alert. They'd be falling asleep. Because here's what sugar does. And most people I talk to who teach at grammar school, they'll attest that once those kids get those sugary drinks, they're all hyper. They come back there hyper, it's all get out, and then they crash. You can do that experiment at home. Give your kids some sugar and observe them. They're going to start running around, doing all kind of stuff, and then they're going to crash and have to take a nap. Because what sugar does, it really is a poison. Because sugar, I was telling, somebody here, all disease in the human physiology is in an acidic environment. Sugar makes your environment acidic because it accelerates the metabolic process. The bad part, you get rid of all your micronutrients because and our food is devoid of these micronutrients, and that's why you get all these pathologies. So you don't want to eat sugar. You really don't want to eat it. It really is poison. It really does screw up your metabolism to eat sugar. And I know people don't want to hear that because people are addicted to sugar, but I've been saying this for like over 25 years.
But again, I just want to add, having been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and thinking, give up sugar and starting to eat bread, chips, bread, all those things are exactly,
but
just things that convert to sugar.
It's the same thing.
They don't eat it, but when I say sugar, I mean all of that stuff.
And kids who come in eating hot chips and even if they get orange juice, or even in the, sometimes the good, quote, free breakfast will give them slightly sweetened organic cereal,
which is full of sugar,
fruit and fruit juice or chocolate milk. It's the same thing. They're getting this carb overload, and so they are tired by 10 because they
Just one thing, because I'm a teacher and I see how the institution really destroys creativity and really punish kids for being kids. But as teachers, you don't have much say on it. That's what I like. I'm a communist too, and I hate racism. But most of my students, I'm a math teacher, and I still give Fs, and I'm basically telling my students that they're failing instead of giving an F to my employer. But that's my job. It's just like I try to fight it, and I'm trying to build a communist party. But as teachers, you don't have that much say in trying to help out students. It's not. You can help some, the majority, and then that's what you like as a teacher. That's sort of like you kind of like think about the people you're helping, but there's a lot more than that.
Let me just say this: people learn from what you do and what you say, and even though you may not have control of what they do, you talk about it. You can talk about these people and tell them, just like we're having this discussion here. And if you tell them, they may not stop eating sugar if you say sugar is poison. But if you say that, when you see them eating sugar, it's poison. They're going to think about it. You could plant the seeds for later in life for what they do. I tell my students, I used to tell my students, you're all addicted to sugar. And they would say, no, we're not. My class was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I said, okay, don't eat sugar till you see me again. Most of them say right out, no, I can't do it. I'm not even going to try that. So you're addicted to sugar. Others say, yeah, well, I'm not addicted. I just like it. Exactly. So you're addicted when you know something that's killing you, and you keep doing it. And most of the people in this room are going to go have sugar sometime today. Because you don't believe me. Why should you believe that lying guy when I know it tastes so good? How can something that tastes so good, makes me feel so good, be so wrong?
So what's the chemical reaction though with the sugar then? Like what does it do to the brain? So obviously it does something to the blood.
It causes the release of endorphins.
Which is why you want it.
You feel good, you feel good, you feel good. And it's also the sweetness. Sugar it was first developed for the pharaohs of Egypt, and only the rich people could have sugar. And then, what?
No, my mom is addicted to sugar, so now she's drinking mineral water right now. She's gonna go back to you.
Oh yeah, she'll be back there by this afternoon. but it stimulates. Sugar stimulates. See, every cell in the body will take up sugar immediately because there's 3 foodstuffs for the cell, and that is glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids. Sugar is the most readily available energy because you can just break it in glycolysis and get 2 ATPs out of it, just like that. Crack. So all cells take it up, and the brain only uses glucose. The brain only uses glucose.
And everything in our body.
Have some of it.
Well, not everything. Fatty acids.
Yeah. That's how it gets.
Yeah, but we turn excess sugar into amino acids via glucose neogenesis. You know what I mean? No, we turn amino acids into sugar via gluconeogenesis. And we break down fats, and we use fats. Fats actually be used in Krebs cycle for energy, but that's for a long, sustained thing. And if you want to lose weight, let me just tell you something. Forget about jogging, try walking. Walk every day to lose weight. You walk at a rate of 4 miles per hour, 15-minute miles. I'll guarantee you cannot help from losing weight if you do that because after 12 minutes you're only using fatty acids. See, I'm not trying to be Mr. Know-it-all or anything like that, but after teaching this for 30 years and running into these people and asking these questions, the reason I did well on drugs is because I had these students tell me, I know what you're saying about drugs is no good, but I need a blunt every day. You need a blunt every day. Why do you need a blunt every day? Well, I work full-time, I go to school full-time, my boyfriend beats me up and takes the money, and I have to take care of my parents and blah, blah, and just live me. I said, oh, shiatsu. I would take a blunt every day if I had to go through that. So that's what made me do the research, and when I did the research, I found out that marijuana was not harmful for you. And, somebody was talking about asthma. If you smoke marijuana, you won't get asthma. Isn't that amazing? Because I was telling people, don't smoke it. I was